It's 10:15 a.m. You finally have your IEP group at the table. You're about to explain the number line, but then Sarah's out of her seat, Marcus is asking for a Band-Aid, and the independent group is currently having a pencil spinning competition. Your blood pressure is rising. You're thinking, maybe my kids just can't do small groups. Stop right there. Your kids aren't the problem. The system is. You're trying to run a marathon before they've learned to sit up. Today I'm showing you the slow rollout small group framework, a 3-week transition that moves you from a classroom chaos to a math block that actually runs itself. We've all been a little bit lied to. Professional development tells us to launch small groups in the first week of school. That can be a recipe for burnout. The biggest mistake? We assume independence is a personality trait. It's not. It's a procedural skill. If your students can't work without you hovering over them like a human helicopter, you can't teach a small group. You'll just be a glorified referee. To fix this, we have to use something I call the ghost teacher method. What's that, you might ask? For the first week, we aren't pulling groups. I know it sounds like we're losing time, but we're actually buying time for the rest of the year. So here's the strategy. We assign work that's 100% in their success zone, that zone of proximal development. This isn't the time for new and scary concepts. We're talking review, fluency games, low floor, high ceiling tasks. And here's the no rescue rule I want to talk about. We're going to set a timer for 10 minutes. Your job is to be a ghost. To circulate, you observe, you take notes, but you don't rescue. This is the hardest part. If a hand goes up, your instinct is to swoop in. Don't. Instead, use nonverbal cues. Point to an anchor chart. Point to their partner. Point to the directions. Why does this matter? We often overhelp our most vulnerable learners, especially our students with special needs or multilingual learners, and that actually builds learned helplessness. By being a ghost, you're proving to them that they have the tools to survive 10 minutes without you. If they can't survive 10 minutes with you standing there, they're never going to survive 20 minutes while you're over there at the kiddie table with a small group. So work on that for about a week. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but work on it until hands don't go up anymore. Work on it until students continue to do their work on their own, or maybe with a partner. Once your class can get over that 12 to 15 minute hump without a fire breaking out, without them needing you to help them, we can move to the test drive. So here's what that looks like. The class is still doing that high success independent work, or maybe partner work, but now you're just going to pull one group. You're going to pull 4 or 6 or 8 students. You're not trying to see every kid today. You're trying to pull one group as the rest of the group does their independent work because you know they can. You're doing a very small test run of small group. The students that are with you are your biggest priority at that time, and you want to see, are students going to begin raising their hands? Are students going to begin coming to ask you for help? And if they do, again, we use those nonverbal cues as pointing them to the anchor charts or pointing them to each other. The key is to not move from your small group for those 10 to 15 minutes and let those students that should be doing independent or partner work continue to do that independent or partner work without you having to be there. And again, plan for just one small group per day. One 15-minute period, one 10-minute period, whatever the time period you're looking at, have one period where most of the class is working independently and you pull one small group. And then you can go back to whole class for the rest of that day. The next day, pull a different group of students, not those same students you talked to yesterday, and think about what are their needs and think about what I can do with them. Don't try to go too fast. Again, your goal for this week, or maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, your goal for this week is to show students that they can work independently, and then you can pull a small group of 4 or 6 or 8 students off to the side working on work that they need to have. Now, it can be tempting during this week to say, hey, those kids have been working really well for 15 minutes, let's do another small group. I would caution against that because having students work for 15 minutes independently is one thing. Having them double that and work independently for 30 minutes, there's going to be behaviors, there's going to be challenges. So don't push that thinking, don't push that time yet. Save time, create the expectations, create the routines so that you can use that time later when you get to 3 or 4 small groups running. So a quick check-in with this procedures that tend to work the best. If you do have a student that comes to you that should be working independently or with a partner and they come to you and ask for help, it feels mean to say, I can't help you right now. But by doing that, you're actually teaching those students that the students at the table that you're working with are the priority. Don't worry, you'll get your priority. You'll be that priority group tomorrow or the next day. But always making sure that I give that dedicated attention to those kids in front of me. and that the other students can be working independently for that time, and acknowledge that conversation. And it also is really helpful to check in with the whole class before and after you do this test run of pulling one small group to explain what went well and what didn't go as well, so that kids can actually visibly see, hey, what are the things the teacher's expecting? And then now we can move on to phase 3. And this might be 3 weeks into the program. We're ready to launch the full 3-station rotation. Don't do 5 groups. Don't do 6 groups. If you're watching this, you're already stressed. You're already thinking, hey, this is a bit overwhelming. Let's keep it simple for now. Let's stick with 3 groups. Think about that magic triangle. So station A can be the independent work, where kids are working on their own. They're practicing things that, again, is in their zone of proximal development on their own individually. It really should be quiet or generally quiet during that group. Maybe they're on a computer. Maybe they're working on independent papers. But that's something that group really can be doing things independently. Some people even use a folder of work for that particular group. Station B, some people call like the lab or partner work or a center station. And I find this works best if it is two students working together, maybe 3. But really the goal for this is that they're doing some practice work. Maybe it feels a little bit more like a game or an activity where there's partner back and forth taking turns. But the goal of this is that students are having student-to-student discourse and they're having conversations about the math. You really can't control how deeply that conversation goes, but having some conversations about, hey, can you show me the strategy you used? Show me the strategy you used. Hey, we're going to take turns rolling dice and take turns doing different math strategies. And then station 3, that teacher-led station, this is where you really do what you need to do. This is where you're thinking about differentiation. This is where you're thinking about your high-intensity, needs-based instruction. Some students might need help on identifying how do I use a number line, so we're going to work on that. Meanwhile, another group might be thinking about how do I use base 10 blocks, or even counting on my fingers. Or meanwhile, another group might need some enrichment. The goal for that teacher-led group is you have the absolute most control of that group, so we want to be doing something different with each group that we meet, whether it's meeting with a different group each day, or whether it's meeting with a couple different groups in one day. The teacher-led group is the place where you really have control and you can really push that productive struggle and you can really see and hear how the students are thinking about that work. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now. You don't know my kids. My kids have high needs. My kids have trauma. They have huge gaps. I hear you, and I hear that challenge. But that's exactly why you need to do this. The more needs your students have, the more they need a teacher who isn't frazzled. This slow rollout process isn't about being lazy, it's about being strategic and showing the exact routines and procedures, giving them the gift of a calm, focused teacher with a calm, focused procedure. It might take 3 weeks to get through all of these steps. It might even take 4. That's okay because we're trying to build a strong foundation that we can use for the rest of the school year. It's much more valuable, even if we're in the middle of the year, to stop and pause and go through these routines and reset or set these expectations for students, because if you can do that in 3 or 4 weeks, the rest of the weeks you have with the students, you can use productively as opposed to playing whack-a-mole with students, answering questions, getting distracted, getting disrupted, and all of a sudden, look at that, the time's over, let's get our things and move to lunch. As you're thinking about where you are, think about what phase you're in right now, or what are you good with? Are you good at being that ghost walking around and not helping? Now, I also have to mention that when I'm saying be a ghost, that doesn't mean actually hide. That doesn't mean wear a ghost costume. What that means of being that ghost teacher is being present. The students see that you're there, but the students also see that they don't actually need you to do work. And that is right there. That's the perfect spot to be. If you have other strategies that work to set up small groups in the initial setup phase of how do we do this procedure, how do we understand how students can work independently, if you have ways to help students understand how to work independently and follow procedures without having to ask you for every single individual question, please share them in the comments. There's so much we can learn from each other, and this is a great way to do it.